A remarkable study was published last week highlighting that the continuation of remote work, a holdover from the COVID-19 pandemic, is having a significant impact on commercial real estate. Consulting firm McKinsey estimates that remote work or hybrid work arrangements could wipe out $800 billion from the value of office buildings by 2030. Their survey highlights that demand for office space is expected to be 13% lower in 2030 than it was prior to the pandemic. And while that is certainly bad news for the companies who own office buildings, it does leave us asking the question of whether or not remote work is a net positive for workplace productivity. Well, joining us now to unpack some of the debate over employees returning to the office is Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Ltd. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Always great to be here, Nima.
Always great having you. Definitely, Brendan. Now, unfortunately, it seems that a lot of people are still continuing to work virtually, even though we're quite far away from the peak of the pandemic, Brendan. So let's unpack this debate for our viewers. What are some of the benefits to consider of having employees return to the office?
Well, I'm not sure it's unfortunate that some people are away, but I do think it has to be dealt with wisdom. It's not all one thing or the other. I think what we have seen is that one can be productive away from the office. It showed, and I think the trouble with that for employees is, when are you actually away? There used to be a hard break between being at work and being at home. And then when we got originally our Blackberries and then our Apples and our now our work at home Zooms and whatnot, we can really be anywhere. It used to be that when I was away on vacation, I was away, very much less so. And now that video calls and you could be expected to be on even if you're half a world away. So that's a consideration from the employee's perspective. If you are working from home as a normal, how do you separate work and relax time? But the other thing I think is, it's not so much the intangible that, you've heard people talk about how the having people in the office helps camaraderie and team building and all that. And it's true. I mean, we have, I think, a dozen interns here this summer, all in person, and I think they're benefiting from all of that. But I think from the employee's perspective, out of sight, out of mind when it comes to employer, I think employees that don't come into work on a semi-regular basis, I think the technical Harvard Business School term is stark raving mad. Because in this world of AI, particularly white-collar jobs are susceptible to being replaced. And my expectation is that the first jobs to be replaced are the ones for people you do not ever see or know what they look like or have at least some passing affection for. So I think short to medium term, and maybe more short than medium, I think it makes sense to at least turn up at the office occasionally.
Very interesting considerations here, Brendan. Now, in terms of the impact to companies, how does working from home maybe impact a company's ability to grow?
I have found that we have had a tremendous advantage because we actually never closed. The Premier of Ontario, whatever his faults might be, declared the capital markets to be an essential service. So we didn't have to close, and we didn't. Yes, 3/4 of our staff were scattered to the four winds, but a good quarter of them stayed here in the office. And I think that gave us a bit of a head start on the rest of the financial world, because while the big Canadian banks could have stayed, they all went remote, and now they're having a much harder time getting back. Whereas it was seen, I think, perceived perhaps more at our company that being in the office was the desired thing, and people would like to be able to come back. Indeed, we had to even shoo a few people away during the different peaks and valleys of the COVID experience. So I think in our experience, being together, working together has given us a head start on our competition, which, while they may have 1,000 or 10,000 times our capital and almost as many more people, I think have had a much harder time coordinating those people for the very reasons they don't see them.
All right, Brendan, just a quick 30 seconds left here. But in terms of the broader impact of all of this, especially when it comes to decreased demand of office space, what are some of the ripple effects of this decreased demand?
Well, I think city cores and big cities like Toronto and Vancouver should watch their back. They're making it harder and harder and harder to come downtown. and that's going to be a problem. I think that there will be continued growth in areas around the big cities, and I think small offices, because I'm not sure everybody wants to work from their living room or their kitchen table or their at-home office. I mean, a cat in front of the camera was cute for the first little bit, but I think people want to work from an office. But since they can work remotely to a degree, I think smaller, remoter offices in small towns are actually going to be a thing of the future.